how that becomes like the stories that we tell ourselves. And so part of this class will be about talking about how to do that for both yourself and your business, right? And so thank you actually, Pastor Nelson, right? Sorry, Minister Nelson, right? Yeah, but it actually works because he's actually a good shepherd himself actually to his team, right? And so I realized when you were talking about being someone who is a custodian, right, and being able to influence on a higher level in a sense. Recently, I had a client I have a client, right? I actually designed some work for him. Was going to put out like a press conference in Kenya, Nairobi, right? And so we had done the designs and everything, and he came back to say that he wants it to be more flashy, right? So he's using the blockchain to sell real estate, right? So it's called tokenization, right? And so in that, so I realized, number one, I was very tired to redesign the entire thing. But the samples that he sent to us had a different perception of his industry that I did not want him to get stuck in, right? And so I texted like very long. I said, the problem with this kind of design is that it closely associates itself with crypto, which is now a dying my industry in a sense. And you want to build the kind of trust that helps you go the distance for a long time. And as soon as I was done, the client said, "Thank you for enlightening me." To be fair, I at first I responded because I did not want to go do the work again, right? But as soon as I actually was done, I realized that actually this is true. If we designed for you like this, people will think it's another thing that is driven by hype cycles, right? Yeah, and all that. And so that has been much of my work. And so number two, I teach. Okay, it's not going then, right? So I teach in a teens church, and so a lot of the slides that you see will have that kind of expression actually, right? So enjoy. Next slide. So bara is Hebrew to create, right? The only time we see the word bara is when it's used with God, right? So because he's the only one who's able to create from utter, like nothing, right? And so one of the reasons for this class is to pretty much get us to that point where we see ourselves as creators, right? And not hide behind the shell of, oh, I don't know how to write, I don't know how to design, right? Or I don't know how to create a presentation, right? Something I've been impressed by is the fact that we have sermons in church where people bring presentations, right? And I'm thankful actually for it. And so, in a sense, when God says, "Let there be light," at that time, light was unimaginable, right? Like, if God has not thought it, it doesn't exist, right? So let's go to how His Spirit begins to influence different people to create throughout Bible times. I'll try to be fast. I made a lot of slides. I have a bet that I might be able to finish on time, all right? And so we see Joseph, right? We see a teenage boy first, right, who is able to dream, right? And then subsequently will be able to interpret dreams. But such is Joseph's life that we hear about a guy who is able to interpret dreams, right, one. Two, he's able to advise a nation on how to store grain for 7 years of plenty and 7 years of want. I've worked in agriculture, and I've actually been very puzzled how you can store grains for 14 years, right? Yeah, and so that kind of creative ability, right, is definitely God-given, right? One. And then we see that not only is Joseph able to dream up think about these things. He's also able to strategically acquire the lands of Egyptians to now be under the control of Egypt. Right? And so, in a period of 14 years, people were exchanging their lands for food. Right? Right? Yeah. So let's go to David. Right? We see a teenage boy, right, who in a sense becomes a warrior, right? One, he's first a shepherd, becomes a warrior. He's a musician. In fact, I was reading some facts about the kind of musical instruments that he created. That in modern times, if you had put David in a room, so he designed a total of 4,000 musical instruments in his day. He created Israel's first choir, right? It still exists, actually, the 288, right? And then, he inspires writings, right? He writes most of the Psalms, right? And then, and all of that. And then I started thinking about the kind of fire that you would have to be able to both be king, be priest, right? Fight over 30 wars, never lose any, right? Be a musician, right? Create musical instruments, become an architect that designs the temple, right? Gathers the resources to build the temple. The only reason why I did not build it was that God said I should not do it, right? Yeah. Gathers the resources, right? And there's this book I was reading. He said, and such was the light of David that he set an entire city alight, right? And when there was no more light to give, he simply slept and was burnt out, right? Yeah. And so let's go to the next person. We see Bezalel, right? Bezalel is, so the Israelites had just come from over 400 years of slavery. And so even in marketing, we call this creative fatigue, right? So you've seen a design over and over, right? Like, let's say on YouTube, you only see Airtel's ad. You will be tired after a while. But imagine Bezalel comes out of slavery. He has only seen Egyptian creativity. And then you would go on to, with the Spirit of God, create unique artifacts that had never been seen before, right? Such was Bezalel. Daniel. There's this text I saw in Daniel 5 verse 12. It says, Daniel was found to have a keen mind and knowledge and understanding, and also the ability to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve difficult problems, right? Again, to move quickly, such was Daniel, right? And then there's this scripture that I liked how Minister Nelson explained it one time. I think it was actually a pastor that explained how my Minister Nelson explained it to you, that how, when we use the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, is able to quicken our mortal bodies. And so, again, Teens Church, that's a picture of Jesus lying dead. That's the Spirit of God actually waking him up, right? And so this same Spirit lives in you permanently. I added permanently because Pastor Ben taught the teens about permanence of the Spirit. So all these people, they had flashes of God's creativity in different sets of time and were able to create in the nature that they have, right? But now we have this same Spirit in us. So next slide, yeah, we all have the creative Spirit of God. So I'll get into our talk now. How do you create memorable stories for your businesses and personal brand? Next, I'll define stories a bit. Stories are how we interpret the world around us. I mean, one of the first things I got exposed to as a child was the fact that my grandfather wasn't a Christian, right? And so every time we talked to him about God, he will tell you, he will point to his wall with a lot of carvings and paintings, and you say, so what do I do with all of these, right? And so, and he was able to actually walk me and my siblings through that system of Igbo cosmology, right, and all of that. And even today, I draw a lot of similarities, right, and I'm keen, right, yeah. And so stories are how anybody has come to interpret their importance or their place, right, in the world, right. It helps us to build them connections. It helps us to transfer meaning, right. What's a brand story? Next. So the sum of the tangible and the intangible core information pieces, right, that forms the foundation which keeps a brand going and growing, right? So for instance, we have digital technology today, and so you are in some way or another online, right? And so I think it was last week, someone posted something. He said, if you're on LinkedIn, please don't write long text, right? Just keep it at 3 paragraphs maximum. And literally, so I don't tweet actively on Twitter anymore. And so someone sent me someone's screenshot saying, so that someone responded. He said, except you are Charles City, then I want to read everything, right? And so I think for the most part, you may, and it's something that we would address, you may seem invisible in the sea of, multiple information actually going out, and that can be discouraging. And I talk about it using David actually down the line, about how if David did not respond to this threat, someone eventually would have, right? And so never think of yourself as invisible. There is a unique flavor you add actually to the conversation, and so keep adding it. So next, so brand storytelling is simply all the stories and experiences a brand shares to align itself with in order to trigger an emotional response from their customers or audience, right? And so how do I explain this? I think I once explained it to my wife, that you see how this floor is made of many tiles, right? Imagine we only tiled one and we left it. Like, we just put one tile at this extreme and we left everything else bare, right? It doesn't come together beautifully. The brands you love and you trust are people that are brands that have gone the distance to pretty much, like tile the whole room, right? Like, keep telling the stories of their heart, what they represent, and to keep saying it as often as you need to, right? And so that's how anything becomes recognizable. You actually go from the extreme of thought to being able to brick by brick, right, build out something big. And so the next slide here I was talking about Lego toys, right? So my son has a number of them, right? And every time I build something for him, he's always quick to go and scatter it and build his own. His own is never that fine, right? But yeah. And so, if you find a single block of it's probably not useful. But when it's many and you put it together meaningfully, it makes sense, right? And so when we think about brand, for us and our businesses, the way we should think about it is putting all your clusters of stories, experiences, ideas, right, into things that fit into a beautiful image. It will take time. Yeah. And so where do we start from? Let's skip 2 slides. Okay, next one. Okay, so the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor, right? He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind and to set the oppressed free. First, I want to identify with everybody in the room that the Spirit of the Lord is upon you. And so the next slide, I would explain what that does. So think about you and your business as God's restorative plan for the earth, right? And so Um, Recently, we had so this story might not fit, but I hope you get the message. So recently, I had a pitch. I'm actually go back to the slide. Yeah. So recently, I had a pitch, and when we're done, the budget for that project was about 6 million. When I went to the presentation, I realized that the client didn't know what we were going to offer him. He just had ideas and just wanted to poke the thing to like reduce the price at the end of the day. And so when I got back home, I called my teammate, and I said, I think we are not going to take this project because this person does not, even if we get this pitch, this person does not understand what we want to do. And they are always going to demand for something that we did not promise that we will give them anyways. Plus, we're already November 25th. If we take this project, we'll walk through Christmas, and I want you guys to rest, right? And so we sent them back to say, hey, we can start this project in February next year, right, if you guys can wait. But at the end of the day, I realized that one of the reasons why I started at Arodo was because I realized that and through the last 3 years, I had a deep sense of responsibility to my people, right? And it always sort of came first, right? One. And then I wanted to tell brand stories in a way that it's not just, oh, we've already posted on them social media, right? This business should get a sense that we are transforming them culturally, right? Yeah. And so next. So the second thing you should never do is do not yield the arena to fools, right? If David waited longer, someone would eventually have represented Israel. The reason why I say this is, I don't use Twitter anymore. I usually get screenshots of the arguments, right? So after I get it, I realize that I'm not as angry as I used to be before, right? And so, how do I explain this? So when the majority of thought in the public arena is from fools, and all you do is maybe be upset, and you never really share your own God-given ideas, I don't think you have a right to be upset, right? And so let's say you are building a brand, and everybody that talks about business is always talking about it in some kind of way that you don't like. I think it's incentive for you to start talking about it the way you like, rather than be angry. Yeah. So next. Have tight ownership of your industry radically contributes to the conversation, right? Participate. Don't speculate, right? So like, get in the conversation. It's better to have failed having your own thoughts in the public space than to be the guy that says, I told you they were wrong. But we don't know why you are right, yeah? And so, and how does this apply in real sense? So for instance, you are building a business that maybe helps parents to be able to teach their children how to be financially secure, right? For instance, that's your business. Something I say often to every client is that the business that creates a lot of content will eventually win, right? If you go to Shopify, for instance, Shopify has over 30,000 information pieces on how to do business globally, right? If you don't start creating today, you almost never be bigger than them, right? And so, have title contributes to every conversation that is happening in your my industry, right? And so, what does that look like? They've already created it, and so you feel like, oh, I shouldn't, right? I shouldn't go that distance to, also share my own, right? You can as well take what has been created and lend your voice actually to it, right? Like, you may say some people are talkative online, but guess what? When globally, they are looking for people. They are the most visible, right? So I took a close to 3 year active break actually from social media. And this year I realized that everybody that they've given Marketer of the Year award nominations to, I don't feature in anyone, right? Right? And so I told my friend, I said, next year we'll try and actually talk more, right? Yeah, than actually spending. So while I spend a lot of my time helping other businesses talk more, right? I realized I need to do the same actually for myself. And so while I'm not encouraging mediocrity, of course you have the same excellent spirit that was found in Daniel, right? Add to the conversation, provide additional, context. For instance, so 2 weeks ago, I just started something. It's called Sustainable Africa. Note, I know nothing about sustainability or climate change, or I know nothing, right? And so I told my friend, because I realized for some reason, some people were just getting in on the conversation for COP28, right, and a number of, and so lots of money is going into climate and funding and all of that. And I said, this is interesting. And so, two weeks ago, I literally started a LinkedIn account. I said, I'm going to read 2 things about this, and I'm going to share it every day, right? And we've actually done that for 2 weeks. Interestingly, we are seeing a lot of global names begin to even comment on it and all of that. And it was just, let's learn and document these learnings in public. And I encourage everyone. I think a lot of the time, some of us have ideas. We think that they are not mainstream, and so they will not be accepted in the conventional sense. And so we stop creating. We think, it needs to be a certain kind of way. It needs to be, it needs to be punchy. It needs to be 20 paragraphs first, right, before I start. PG earlier in the year actually started a Substack account. Note, this is not an accusation. Right? But I realized that every Sunday he will just share a link of something that he has actually written, right? But, and he did actually go the distance. Again, not an accusation, right? It's to literally spores, right? Is there something that matters to you? Can you begin documenting in the public space about your business, about yourself, about where you are going, right? What does that do? I started thinking about the fact that the people who wrote the Psalms may never have thought that 3,000 plus years, we will be referencing it as a spiritual guide for prayer. They must have written that book thinking people that come to the temple will just read it for them here and they will go home, right? And so if you keep thinking that, my ideas are not great enough to put out in the public space, there may be something about your ideas that just, goes with you, right? Yeah. And so what does that look like, for instance? There are a number of Nigerian businesses that are figuring out these dollar exchange issues seamlessly, right? But guess what? Nobody knows, right? Or there is a woman that has an idea for how to stock inventory. It's not conventional business school knowledge. She just knows that, yes, I went with my sister to shop some items, and the woman said, Oga, you be my first customer. You go pay me with cash so that money go dey come. And I didn't get it, right? But apparently in the market, they have these things where the first transaction should not be transferred. They want to touch it so that more money will come. But guess what? These ideas are our own, but they are not documented in the public space. No one is talking about the psychology of holding cash first, right? Exactly. When we started putting rice in leaf, right? The white man came and said, ceramic plates, and all of that. Do you know that there is a sustainability startup that got into the London School of Economics this year, actually? I advised their inaugural batch, right? And literally, they compress leaves into the shape of a plate. And that's how they raised money. Yeah. But guess what? We've thrown our own away. Yeah. So, next. Yeah. Next is stop playing local champion, transcend your local barriers. The earth is still the Lord's. So my dad told me something. He said, "Don't be a spoon," right? Be a spoon. So he used to always. So when I started learning to design and write, he would say, "Don't." He will always. I think about this sometimes, and I thought it was mean, right? So, my first major design was for Access Bank, right? And so it was on a billboard in Benin. And so when we drive through the billboard, I will show my dad, Dad, it was me that designed this thing. He will always say, well, in hindsight, I get it now. But, maybe some encouragement would have helped. And I'm happy that we are going through godly parenting now, right, in church, right? But you see, he would say, be a spoon, because when you go to China, if you see, if a Chinese man sees a mortar and a pestle, he would think it's art, it's antiquity. He wouldn't know that they use this to make food, right? And so he says, be a spoon such that in every market, you are identifiable, right? Yeah. So the next slide. Dare to share your differing ideas, move from obscure to the middle, right? So something I found is some of the ideas that have become mainstream today started as struggles on the fringes, right? Christianity was very odd in its day, right? We're the only religion that believed that, it's just one God. Yeah, everybody had at least 6 or 8, right? And so we're saying, our own is only one, right? And so this tiny group of people in Roman Palestine at the time would insist for years that God has come. All this one that you people are praying for a God to come. Our God has come. He has died for us. He has gone back, right? And guess what? That idea has moved from the extreme to the middle. And so think about your business or your personal brand like that, right? Talk about it until your ideas become mainstream. Again, this is hard and it's going to take you a long time to do, but start. Next. Pastor Paul Adefarasin taught me this during foundation school at House on the Rock. He would say, excuses are valid monuments of nothingness, right? Nothing happens when you make excuses. And he says it like this: excuses are monuments of nothingness. Those that use it are not wise, right? And so I wrote here, I said, what if the psalmists waited for Grammarly before publishing? You see, your excuses to not do things will be valid, right? In fact, earlier in the year when PG actually started his blog, he would say, so a lot of his designs were actually prompts to DALL-E or so, right? And so he didn't have to wait for a great design actually before he started. And so excuses are valid, but nothing actually comes out of it. Next, create more than you consume, create more than you criticize, right? I'm not going to say anything about that, just move on. Stop censoring yourself. Your ideas and stories are a unique force that has the potential to shape the world, right? So when I think you need to think childlikely about how you build your brand. I'll give an example. I've managed the Africa FinTech Summit for 2.5 years now, right? When we started, it was less than 1,004 followers on LinkedIn at the time. And so I remember when I came to the team, let me tell you guys how I had that job interview. I was going to Banex. when my colleague said, oh, there's a group of people that would like to meet you. Can you have a meeting? I said, okay, just add it to my calendar. And they said, it's already on your calendar. It's happening in 10 minutes. And so I literally entered one of those stores in Banex, went to the back, and looked for a white background, right, and had them decor, right? And that was how we actually got that contract. And for the longest time, I realized that what we've done is literally, so you always, people are tempted to believe that the only kind of content that you can put out are the ones that you create yourself, right? So I have to have written this poem first, or as a poet, I always feel like, oh, it's only my poems actually that should feature on my social media account, right? And all of that. But why can't you begin reviewing other people's poems? Start there, right? And so what we did for the FinTech Summit was literally we decided that rather than just use internal content, we're going to share every content from every FinTech in Africa doing ambitious stuff. It's 2 years today, and it's actually 2 years around this, it's 3 years around this time. And we've started a newsletter that has gone over 50,000 subscribers. Note, FinTech is a niche industry within tech, right? We've organized a conference twice a year that has done over $1 million in sponsorships and has done well over 200K in ticket sales. Note, my founders will always say, we did not used to do this business like this before you came, right? Yeah. And so, what makes a brand story good? Next, great stories are personal. They are relevant. They are intellectually stimulating. They are emotionally resonating. Please scroll. Yeah. Next one. Yes, your audience needs to see themselves in your stories, so don't alienate them, right? So as a business, talk from the point of view of the person that's going to buy from you, right? People appreciate stories. Next. Okay. People connect better with brands who sound like they could be their neighbor or friend, right? And so, as humanly possible, make it human, right? Next. Next, please. Next. Stories should be helpful, right? And so, today, I'm literally going to spoil everyone. The industry segment that you play in, if you give yourself 52 weeks from next year, from this weekend, right? To write, let's say, it doesn't have to be long, and this is the temptation that people have to sit back, right? Let's say you are in real estate. If you decide today, you're going to talk about, let's say, 1 or 2 things a week around mortgage, around how to get your CFO, right, and all of those things. If you start today, right, you find that if you do, let's say, 2 content pieces a week, at the end of the year is 104, right? There's a client that we have today that literally discovered us on the web, right? It was scary for us because we never talk about what we do, right? And so I was like, okay, let's actually have a meeting. And in 2 meetings, we actually closed. And so I think I wouldn't go too far. If we have any questions, actually, let's ask. I think I'm done. Scroll up till the end. No.
Hello? Okay. Should I stand up?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Okay. So, my question is going to be all in one.
Mm-hmm.
So, but try and, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So you said excuses for not doing things will be valid, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm into the real estate industry, and I have quite a few ideas. I see these days, I see myself, having this passion for the commercial sector of real estate instead of residential, which is, what is expected. I went into real estate with the mindset of, okay, let's make money. But I'm already building so much capacity in it that I'm beginning to segment it. I'm beginning to understand, okay, warehousing, just the commercial sector mostly. So I don't post on social media. I don't. I see people's content and I'm like, oh, where do I even start from? This place is full.
Yeah, it's full.
You get. And I'm seeing people that they already have, verified accounts. These are normal agents I interact with on a daily basis. They have verified accounts. And I'm like, where do I start from? I don't even know. I don't even post. I don't even have that much followers. Organically, I have, on my personal page, I have up to 1,000 followers. Organically. So I really, and then I keep, I told you before I started, it's like plenty.
No, it's fine.
So I reached out to Yemisi the other day, and I'm like, oh, I need a job, I need something. But somewhere in my heart, I just think that, okay, if
I sabi the thing.
Yeah?
Like,
I understand this thing. I need to really intentionally break into this sector so that I can be able to, money is the end, but I think I'm understanding it better. So I really, really, really want to break into that social media space. If it is to talk, I know what to say. But sometimes when I bring, even posting my own personal pictures, when I want to post, the problem now, the caption, what are we going to write on this thing? Do you understand? Okay. So I really need help. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let me start like this, right? There are people who own your space who shouldn't, right? I've experienced it. So recently, at the FinTech Summit, someone stopped me in Zambia and said, I don't know that anybody else could have been able to pull this off in the way that you have, right? And I realized that sometimes when you let everybody else that you are smarter than, this person, I sabi this work past you, right? If you let, it's not like if you let them, of course, actually, they will always do the thing. But if you're always tunnel visioned as to what everybody else is doing and what you could possibly do, right, you will not start, right? And so maybe here's the small encouragement you need, right? One, check out, again, not being a spoon, being a spoon now, right? Who are the top global real estate businesses that you have heard of, all right, or that you know, right? It's as easy as going to their blog and consuming it all, right? One. As you consume, you will realize that you are able to pick out small elements of things that you can even write about for local context. For instance, the things we learn about real estate online is usually after you have made the mistake. Right? Yeah, it's usually after, right? And so imagine there is a central source of truth in this country that I can just go to purity.com, right? And I will read about, and there's nothing I'm looking for about obtaining a commercial property, steps to actually look out for. In fact, it's even easier now that you can put a fragment of your thoughts on Bard. I actually like him, Bard, right? So bard.google.com, bard.google.com, and it will flesh out your ideas actually for create one thing. Think about how it applies for everywhere, right? So you post that article on your blog. Can you do a 2-minute video explaining it on your Instagram? Can you do a thread on Twitter explaining it again, right? So like, and in truth, the people that you think that you are afraid of will soon begin to actually look at you and actually begin to learn, right? And so you will never be a threat to anybody else in your industry until you start to do. Exactly. So please do. Yeah? Yeah.
All right, please. Do we have any other question?
Hello, good morning. So like you said earlier, you've been off social media for quite some time. Personally, I went through a phase and I was off social media for a very long time. And in my head, I'm like, okay, we'll come back next year. We'll come back next year. We'll come back next year.
And just like that, you never
How
come.
do you come back? Like, how do you come back? And you're seeing things like she said, it's quite overwhelming, and
Yes,
you really don't know where to start from.
Okay.
I want to make reference to him, Minister Charles, if I'm saying that correctly. Nelson, sorry. So he said something about, you know, where you fit, where you fit in. I used to be a social media person, but personally now with growth, I feel like I don't know if I have the strength for get ready with me, talk with me, I want to talk, I want to do me. Will people accept me? Because me is backwards. How do I fit in this space being backwards?
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I can explain this a bit because that I used to look like group we look like group therapy for us both, right? Yeah, because I've not actually been online much. But one thing I'll tell you is this: like, I get a sense, even for me, that sometimes when I have an idea and I don't share it, I feel like there's somebody that needed it, that is not going to get it, and that idea will not travel through time to help people, right? And so, for instance, I think it was 2 months ago, I was listening to the song by Ashake called Yoga, right? And in the song, he said, who go there for you, who go there for you, no go let go or something, right? And I instantly had the inspiration that, oh, this, I like the idea, but it's not a great idea. And so I wrote about how I thought that sometimes who should be with you can also leave, right? And so maybe find a medium of expressing that is not very stressful or like draining. For me, it's my blog, right? So like only people who have the patience to read, right, and will engage, right? And so additionally, make minute steps actually to come back. It's actually something that PEG told me. I don't know if he remembers. He told me that this my distance on social media has an element of pride in it, right? So because you have things that the world needs. And so, and God, again, you are God's plan for restoration on the earth. And so if you don't share those ideas, right, someone else will. Yeah, and you know, and the way God has entrusted you to share it, right, He's banking on it. Yeah, He's actually banking on you to actually share it. Yeah?
Okay, so I think that a lot of trends on... Do I have to stand up?
No, no, it's fine.
A lot of trends on social media were started by someone, and then it became popular. So if you're trying to get on it, someone else's trend, you will feel backwards because it's not yours. But if you put your own thing out there, the people that are for you will meet you where you are. And then you, whatever you put out will now become a trend. So my advice is just going to be you. You've got something that someone needs, just like you said. And I'm speaking to myself.
It's good. Again, actually, group therapy. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Please, can we put our hands together properly for Mr. Charles Isidi? That was a very insightful session. So many nuggets. Charles, please, I hope you're going to publish these slides at some point. I think we need it. We need it. Thank you. If there's one big thing I'm taking away, can you please just help me tell your neighbor, be a spoon? Be a spoon. I think that's something to always remember. You have to be relevant. You have to find a way to be identifiable in every market. Don't be a local champion. Be a spoon. I won't forget that. Very quickly, we're going to transition to our first panel. And I'm going to introduce the moderator of the panel, and then she would introduce members of the panel. All right. So the panel will be moderated by Mrs. Pauline Akinyosoye. So Pauline is a graduate of psychology from Swansea University, United Kingdom. She's a licensed counselor from the Institute of Counseling, Nigeria, and the founder of Fathered by ABBA. Oh, okay. And the founder of Fathered by ABBA, pardon me, a grief support group helping individuals thrive through loss. Apologies. She's the founder of Fathered by ABBA, a grief support group helping individuals thrive through loss. She used to work with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and now she heads the branding team on from the Christian Broadcasting Network to heading the branding team on Superbook Nigeria to becoming an education counselor with IDP Education. Pauline's career has evolved through multiple industries. When she is not counseling, she's most likely planning an event or spending time with loved ones. Pauline is going to be anchoring a panel which is going to be a career conversation on how to start and grow a successful career. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Pauline Akinyosoye.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My directors have moved me. It's been an amazing conversation. I hope you all agree. There's been a lot to learn, from learning to listen and reflect and observe to being a spoon. You know, there's so much to take in from everything we've heard today. So I like how we've transitioned from, Mr. Nelson talked about being in employment and, you know, just being relevant overall. And Charles came and even cemented that further. And you would agree with me that as Christians, it's not enough to just exist. There has to be that excellent touch, you know, that differentiates us from the rest. So basically, the next session we're going into is just how to be excellent, how to go from being ordinary to being extraordinary. Like, there are things that we've been doing maybe in our careers that don't seem to be bringing the results that we expect. And this session is just to help us maximize all of that. I like how Charles talked about the people of old, you know, from David You know, because when you think about these people, you wonder what time they even had to reinvent themselves, to rebrand. You know, when Charles was saying all this, I'm like, what time did he have? And what am I doing in my life? You know, so there's so much more that we can be doing. I think that, so I was reading Matthew 5 a while ago, and most times when I'm reading the Bible and I want it to make sense for that, I read it in Pidgin English so that I can relate to it. You know, and Matthew 5:13 basically says, "Now be salt for this earth. But if salt no get taste, how it go be for people mouth?" So if you're, you know, you're in the world, but you're not bringing that extra, you know, as a Christian, then, you know, you're not different from the rest, and you can't shine that light of God's word to other people. Anyway, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce my panelists. First on the list is someone we know in-house very well, and Charles has already made reference to him, Pastor Benro Ogundipe. Pastor Benro currently serves as the head of administration at Catholic Relief Services, CRS, providing leadership and oversight in the facilities, protocol, front desk, and IT departments. In addition, he is part of the board of Aspilos Foundation and an associate pastor at the Baptizing Church Abuja. Please make welcome our one and only Pastor Benro, who we call PG. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, so our next guest is very special. Even from the name, you know it's special. So her name is Toynrick Bianyiko, and she is the CEO of Elevator Craft. She's the founder of Elevation Craft, a people management company and an employability skills trainer who has collaborated with international and indigenous organizations to empower over 3,000 Nigerian youths with employability skills. She has over a decade of experience in talent acquisition and is an internationally certified HR professional. Please make welcome Toynrick Bianyiko.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, so it's great to have you both here, and I know that a lot of us are used to aspiring to perspire, to Maguire, all those things, and we don't want to do that anymore. We want to know like practical tips on how, you know, we can move forward, you know, how we can hit the ground running at this point. So I'll start with you, PG. I would say, you know, how did your career start, and what are some practical tips that you think have been instrumental to where you are today?
Praise God. I know it's a business summit, but praise God. Awesome. Okay, so I've told this story a number of times. So almost everyone who knows me knows the story of how I got into tech. But I'll tell it again with emphasis, and I'll try to highlight a number of things. A couple of weeks ago when we were doing the testimony, I taught us the STAR method for interviews. How many people were in church? How many people remember it? So the STAR method is situation, task, action, result. So when people tell stories, they tell you the situation, they tell you the task that was facing them, the actions they took, and the results they received. My story won't follow that. So I'm just telling you now so that you don't attack me later. But here's what happened. So I finished university. All of us, typically in Nigeria, your career path is you go to secondary school, go to university. But the funny thing about me is that most things that are easy seem to be hard for me. in old church terms, they call it generational curse. It's not. But it's just that I have to work harder at a number of things. So when I finished school, I did actually very well. My wife doesn't like me telling this part. I was one of the people in my set who passed English. Yeah. Some people had to go retake in another school. So I passed, Sha. That's the point of that story. So, but when I finished, I couldn't get into uni. And so I didn't get into uni. I now went to Ife to do a diploma. I did a diploma. I still couldn't get into uni. I now went into Ado Ekiti to do sociology. Finished in sociology. Top 3 in my class. I think I was number 2. The only person who beat me was a pastor. And I believe it's because he was closer to God than me. But awesome time, finished school. It's time to go for NYSC. I go to the board. My name is not on the board. So I go back to the school and ask them, what's going on? They say, after you started, WAEC canceled the results you used to enter. You see that? It's interesting, have you? So I wrote to WAEC. What happened? They said, they cheated in my center now. And they said I should come. So I went to WAEC, threatened to sue. They took me to a big room with plenty of lawyers. They said, those are our lawyers. They don't have work. So sue if you want to sue. But if you are serious about resolving this problem, you should write to us telling us you made life decisions based on the result before we canceled it. So when you explain like that, we will revalidate the result. So I did that. The point of all that is that for 2 years, I was trying to resolve that problem. In those 2 years, I went to Bible school, and I started working in an IT company. So those 2 years of waiting to go to serve was the period when I got involved in IT at all. And that's how my career in IT started. So at the end of the 2-year process, I got posted to serve. Now, you remember that I said my own things are always a little bit different, right? So I got to NYSC. My uncle had arranged for them to post me to Policy and Strategic Studies, an offshoot of the National Assembly. I get there, what's the word now? They rejected me. Why did they reject me? My uncle that works there is a pastor. So when they want to steal money, he doesn't allow them. So once they heard that I'm linked with him, they say I should come and be going. They are getting more. So I left, and I started looking for other roles. Interestingly, my uncle now said, Shebi, they rejected you where I'm working. Let's look at NGOs. So he took me for 3 NGO interviews. The first one was Action Aid. Most difficult interview I've done in my life. Took a whole day.
Wow.
In the end, they took me and 2 women. And then I served with Action Aid. And then that led me, so in that role I was more IT. From there, I went to the bank for 2 months after service. It was horrible. Please don't try it. And then I came back to the NGO sector and started working with Catholic Relief Services. I have been with Catholic Relief Services for 18 years, thereabouts now. In that time, I have worked as IT guy, network administrator. Then I got a regional role that allowed me to work across Central Africa. So I became the Regional Information Systems Advisor for CARO, for all of Central Africa. Then in 2017, there was a huge problem in Nigeria. I helped them solve it. The Nigeria team wrote to my boss and said I should come work with them. And so I came back to join them as head of protocol and public relations. After 3 or 4 months, they changed it to head of admin, which is the role I'm doing. But basically, the point of all this story is that I was a generalist. So I know a little bit about almost everything. So I get into arguments with all the experts all the time. I like to tease, what's his name? Yes, Minister Marx, that if they leave me, I'll be a lawyer as well, because I read a lot. But certain things are constant that will stand you out in any career situation. Number one, you have to learn to read and listen. Read and listen. Number two, you need to be authentic. Don't pretend, don't form. When they were doing the interviews for the regional position, they were looking for someone who had a certain number of skills, a certain number of years of experience, someone who spoke French, and I think those were the key factors. There was somebody who was from Congo. We had exactly the same skills, and he spoke French. But one thing that had happened is that everybody on the regional team had visited Nigeria before. So when they came to Nigeria, I would help them solve problems. And we would just gist. Some of them I would buy food for. Some of them, we were just relating realistically. When they were deciding, they came to a team of the regional people and said, who do you want? The Congolese guy who speaks French or the Nigerian guy who does not speak French? And everybody unanimously said me. And so that authenticity of who you are, the points I'm trying to make with all this is, you are a Christian. Your Christian worldview must reflect in everything you do. So it does not matter if it's a very restrictive place or it's a very free place. The identity of being a Christian must show. When people see that, the biblical answer is that they will glorify your Father in heaven. But another byproduct is that they want to be where you are. Praise God.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for PG. One thing we can appreciate from his story is the consistency and just that perseverance, and he's evolved through different sectors. So he's not remained stagnant. He's basically improved himself over time, and that's something that I think we can take from what he has said. So, Mrs. Toyin, our HR expert. Since we're thinking about rebranding, I'm sure there are people who want to probably change careers or are looking to diversify. So, what are common mistakes and key tips one should consider when putting together a CV and applying for jobs? Like, what are those things that are important and what are the things that are not? Should we put our local government so that, you identify us that we're from the same place, and then, like, what are things that are really important on a CV?
Praise the Lord. Let me start the way he started. Thank you. So, I like to liken a CV to a key. The job, that thing people say, get your foot in the door. So that company, that industry, wherever it is you want to go to, there's a door. And your CV is the key that can open that door. You need to see your CV as, I think your CV partners with the Holy Spirit. Yes, because it can go to places you've not gone to. So you have to be very deliberate and intentional about that tool. It's something a lot of us take for granted. Another thing again is you have to understand that recruiters are human beings. And every recruiter, born again or not born again, has biases. So first of all, you need to take out anything that would make that person discriminate against you. So apart from your name and your surname, that section that we call biodata has to go. It doesn't work anymore. There are people that don't like Kogi people because they think Kogi people are wicked. Sorry. No, I'm just practically. I know somebody that said the first time she saw me, she thought I was Igbira and she just hated me. Yes. And she says it to my face. Or, that thing Nigerians call breakfast. Imagine the last breakfast you chopped was from someone from Kafanchan. And then you put your state, your local government, your village. You will collect the breakfast that you did not serve. So take out all those things. Your gender, marital status. There are people who do not want to work with marriage. Immediately they see, they think, now wow, this person will come and give birth to children here. Like, this is what goes through people's mind. Then, even in regards to, like, age, there are times you're so competent, and then someone sees that you are young. And then they start thinking about how they can't respect you or something. And then there are people who are elderly, but you're mature and you're really cool. Someone sees that you graduated how many years ago, you're 18 years older than them, and they think you're going to be. So all these things come to play, so take that out. Secondly, I recommend that you take out, there's what we call profile summary. Back in the day, we used to write career objective. I'm a strong, dedicated, resilient, passionate problem solver with the ability to work under pressure. I pay attention to detail. That does not work anymore. Right now, what's happening is your profile summary. And your profile summary is, as the word says, is a summary at the top of your CV that summarizes everything about you. It should make life easier for you, like straight to the point, someone looks at that place before going down. But a nice, I would have said a badly written profile summary, but you can write the profile summary well, but it will still play against you. Yes, because if I'm looking for, say, a project manager, and I go to your CV and your CV, the first thing I see on your profile summary is, I'm a procurement officer, I've checked out, I'm out. I'm looking for, and it's possible that if I go through your CV, you've been doing projects that I need, but your summary is meant to make life easy for me. And the first thing I see is you're calling yourself something else, because it is what you identify as that you put forward first. It's what matters to you that you put forward. So you have told me you are procurement, I will leave the CV. So in what I recommend is nobody will disqualify your CV for not having a profile summary. But a properly written profile summary can still play against you. That means you have to modify it per job. So to me, just take it out. It would help you. It's good. But if you can't modify it all the time, just take that section out. The next thing your CV should have is a section for your accomplishments. Now, you can either have a section for accomplishments or you can put it under each job. But I recommend it is a full section because recruiters are always in a hurry. And chances are you put that, the accomplishments or achievements under the description of whatever job function. So before you get to that, or before the recruiter gets to that point, they may have missed that and just moved on. And then make sure that the achievements or accomplishments speak to the kind of level, to your level. Imagine you're looking for, say, a managerial role, and your accomplishment was, I set up the Excel sheet for something. Come on. That does not speak seniority. Like, it should speak to some strategic problems you solved, yes. It should speak to something you set up. It should speak to how you helped them meet some numbers. Make sure that you put, if you can, right? Yes, put the numbers. And then you can also put the maybe like, oh, in Q2, like duration that you did all of that. And yes, then you should also have your competencies. Your competencies should speak to the job that you're applying for. A lot of us go online and just get general competencies, general skills, and then general, say, computer skills, but it should speak to your job. So as a HR person, some of my competencies are talent acquisition, performance management, organizational development, change, stuff like that. Customer service is important, but it shouldn't be the top thing on my CV. For project people, you might have things like stakeholder management, things around budgeting and all of that, change management. So let your competencies speak to the role and make sure you can defend it. There was someone was telling me about a guy that brought his CV and then he had all these nice things on his CV. He had 10 years of experience. And when they started asking him questions, the guy had just graduated. Like, yeah, so he took somebody's CV and just put his name. right? Or I've seen cases where in an interview, somebody says they're a problem solver and you ask them, what was the last problem you solved? And they're looking at you like, or you say your hobbies are reading. What was the last 2 books you read? You cannot say anything. So whatever you put, make sure you can defend it. Your soft skills should also speak to the role. And then computer proficiency. This is something I joke about. But for real, like the world is talking all this big stuff, AI, generative, like all these big words, and Nigerians, we're still asking you if you can use Microsoft Word and Excel. So computer proficiency, customer service, project management, they are project management tools. It would be good to portray you can use that. I'm sure if you come to pharmacists, medical people, like almost every field has like the tools that you use to automate that process. Show that you know how to use these tools. And if you don't work in a place where you can gain access to those tools, let me give you a 419 method. It's not a 419 method, but it's a method that will make you say the truth. What do I mean? Almost every tool, Trello, Asana, almost every tool has a trial version. Are you aware? And most of all of these tech tools, when you go to their YouTube, they do tutorials. Some of these companies even pay influencers to do free tutorials on how to use it. What I tell people is watch those tutorials, install the free version, play around with it at home. Once you, in fact, you can even give yourself some personal targets. Use the free version to do those things, and then you put it on your CV. Do you know how to use it or you don't know how to use it? Did you lie? No, you did not lie. That's a very easy way for you to know how to use those tools. Then you come to your job, your place of experience, you put where you've worked. Everything on your CV should have the most recent place or education before the older things. So you put that on your CV and then just put key summaries, right, that speak to the job that you are applying for. If you know you have dual roles, say I'm a HR and an admin. If I'm applying for an admin role, I would write that description in a way that it speaks more to admin things. If it's the other way, you flip it around. The next thing you should have is summary of your education. Some people separate the title of maybe you write BA this differently, then put the school. Please don't do that. You have to keep your CV really summarized. So put your education, you can add your certifications in there to just make it easy. Just write your maybe certifications and education or something like that. Put the most recent. And then if you're one of those people that, you know, there are people that like learning. They just take all like trainings. If you give, oh, you're like that, good. Now, mostly when you're just starting, I recommend that you streamline your education to suit what you're applying for. You're looking for a job, only you project management, only you HR, only you CRM, only you political science, only you know there are some things that looks like you're like this guy is still confused. And every recruiter wants to think that this job you're applying for connects with your futuristic plans. So try to streamline even your education to suit what you're applying for. And then the next thing should be your references. You can put your references or you can put available on request. Now, as ridiculous as this sounds, at an event like this, a recruiter said if she does not see references on your CV, she's going to assume you're not a serious person and she's just going to throw that CV away. So, as I said, recruiters are human beings. So maybe you might want to say is make sure you put your best foot forward. If you're trying to transition career paths, for instance, let's say you've been doing a lot of work in one field, and because you're trying to transition, you've invested a lot of money in acquiring knowledge, certifications, a master's degree, something, and your education makes you more suitable for the thing you're trying to apply for. Your education, the section of your education should come before your experience. All the things that make you the most suitable, like that makes you, like that sells you more for that opportunity should be the things that you put forward. Then lastly, package the CV. That's why you should submit your CV in PDF format. Imagine someone opens your CV and there are errors all over the place. Bullet points, you know there are the square bullet points. Some places have square, some places have circle, some places have asterisk. And then you say you pay attention to detail. You're contradicting yourself. You get. Some places the formatting starts here. You go to this other place, it starts there. So these are things that can disqualify you. So mostly when I'm looking for things like maybe people that will do admin work, or I'm looking for a business developer, immediately I open your CV. I don't care where you've worked. Why? Because you're meant to sell yourself. How can I trust you to sell my brand when you can't even sell yourself? So that's something people take for granted. They prioritize the content and then they are careless about the presentation. No. Package your CV. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think there's so much to take in from your answer, but we have a number of questions, actually. And what I'm going to do going forward, so we maximize time, is to merge some of these questions together because they're quite similar. And I know you've spoken to some of this, you've like generally answered, but more specifically now, I'd like to ask both of you, either of you can answer actually. What are, as active recruiters, what are essential soft skills to succeed in the role? And what are some of the reasons why people have failed interviews you've been on?
Okay, so soft skills vary according to the role, but there are some soft skills that you cannot negotiate. For instance, communication. I tell people, whether we like it or not, private sector culture in Nigeria is packaging culture. We love packaging because, come on, you want to project a certain image. So, not communicating properly, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you dress. A lot of people take for granted online interviews. And what people don't understand is it's harder for you to ace online interviews. Do you know I've interviewed people online where, you know that couch some of us have in our room where we keep the clothes that shouldn't make it into the closet? You know you've worn it and you want to wear it again, so you don't want to hang it. I've interviewed people that sat on that, like someone, she sat on that, yeah. You know, so you have to be intentional about what you communicate. I want to say something. A lot of us did not have the privilege to grow up in, like to have a very solid foundation. And it's not a sin, it's not bad not to have had that good foundation, maybe where you went to a very good school, spoke good English. But it is wrong for you not to try to fix it. You can't speak English, you are listening to Wazobia. They can't shoot the man Bekete, they can't shoot the man Bokoto. Why are you, no, it's, I have a sibling that suffered this thing. She was always, I promise you, me like this. I had a sibling that would come, Mama Fide, waiting is job today. I'm like, what's wrong with you? And it started out like a joke. When she entered the university and she was seeing the kind of guys she wanted to date, following all those girls that are saying, Raphael, hello, what's up? And she's there. You want to speak Igbagan? So during COVID, this my sister was reading the dictionary as if she was reading the Bible. And I'm happy to say that her vocabulary improved. Stop watching Selena Tested. Oh, send me the Azar. All those kind. Leave that. You go collect water. Is a joke. No, but honestly, until you get to a place where you need to speak well, these are the things that sell you. That's the truth. These are the things that sell you. I know that NGOs are more focused on like the problem you can solve. But not all of us can work in the NGO space. There are some of us that are getting the contracts with the NGO. Mrs. Yemisi here trains with me. So if you come and work with us and you put it on your CV that you worked on that project, it's still promoting your GP now, your social GP, right? So you need to focus your communication, your presentation, very, very important. And then your ability to solve problems. Don't be lazy mentally. Some of us only want to do what everybody is doing. Respectful. Do you remember when everybody was doing phone call? This phone call business of before. Even POS, everybody can do it. Don't be mentally lazy. Invest. Show that you can solve. Yes, you can think and you can solve problems. So these are like basic skills that I believe like almost, and then computer proficiency, it cannot be overemphasized. Many people are looking for remote jobs. You have a laptop, you're only using it to watch film. Korean love film, as I joke. But let me ask you, if you get a remote job, how do you intend to? You know that these remote jobs, they use technology to communicate. The meetings you will have, the project management tools, the tax management tools, that's not Microsoft Word and Excel. That's another level of tech savvy. So you even have to be like technology, like tech savvy to earn in dollars, yes, and all these these aspirations we have. So these are basic of basic right now. Did I answer everything? Thank you.
Allow me to just buttress your last point about laziness.
Yes.
I think most people that I have interviewed in the last year, the people who failed, it's the lack of commitment, the lack of focus. You can't send one CV to 100 companies. And I know that it feels like work, but you are jobless. This is the work you should be doing. So focus on the work that you should be doing at the point in time. If you don't have work, make 100 CVs. Make them. So when they ask you for the one for HR director, you send. HR manager, you send. HR officer, you send. It's same you, but you have different grammar. Minister Nelson mentioned something. She also mentioned there are things they expect at certain levels. When you are writing your CV, you write, as somebody who is trying to be an officer, I pack all the rice after people finish eating. As the manager, you are in charge of organizing feeding for the event. As the director, ensuring staff satisfaction with incentives around this and that. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can't just send one CV. If you send the director one as an officer, they will say you can't employ this person. This person is not serious. So it's that lazy, and it translates to real life. It's not just the way you submitted your CV now. Just let me prove myself. When you get there, your laziness will still show. I was speaking to Sister Buki. Somebody we know went for an interview. The guy knew all the answers. So if we are scoring him answer only, he will score 100%. Now, he now sat down. So that's the answer now. And he was talking like this throughout the interview. Nobody took him seriously. The same thing carries on around everything. How you dress, how you speak, how you... Like she said, it's packaging. Package the one that will get you the job. Yes. Don't diminish your chances by being lazy. I think that's the only way to say it. Thank you.
Please, a round of applause for them. I mean, even if you want to be lazy, at least package well. Do you understand? Because I think that even takes some effort, you know. Anyways, now I'm going to merge two other questions as well. And I know we've talked about being lazy, but now we're talking about people who have been, maybe they were not lazy, but they've been out of work for a long time. Or they've taken a break for whatever reason. How do we make a comeback? You know, and for someone who is maybe they feel they need to be a tech bro now. You know, they want to move into tech. How do they transition? Like, maybe not tech. It can be any other industry. How do I transition from where I'm at, maybe from NGO into finance, whatever it is?
Okay, so let me start with how to transition to a new field. One of the best ways to transition to a new field is start by acquiring knowledge. But I would like to recommend, let me start from the top. Anything you want to start, and even, of course, we are Christians, so you have to pray about it and press into God. But even if you were not a Christian, you need to research. You need to be sure that that field is for you. You need to understand yourself. Just as what Mr. Nelson said you want to do business and you don't like talking to people. I remember a retreat we did, and the customer service lady said she doesn't really like people disturbing her. They ask her too much questions. You are not ready. So before you even go into that field, you need to understand yourself. And you need to even be sure that it aligns with your values, with your person, and with your destination, the goal. Don't jump into it because it's fetching everybody money. Secondly, you need to go and do your finding. Because there are some jobs that people have invested in Nigeria, but we don't have jobs for those fields. An instance I heard, though, please, if you're learning it, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I heard that there are a lot of data analysts in Nigeria right now that are looking for work. It's because we will get there, but we are at a point where we don't have a lot of job opportunities for data analysts. That's the truth. So you also have to be sure that there are these career opportunities and all of that. Then you do a lot of learning. Learning takes money, but there are lots of there are sites where you can get free trainings. Start with that. When you put it on your CV, you know I spoke of the education. When you put it, don't put in bracket free training. No, nobody needs to know. Nobody needs to know. Put it on your CV. Then you need to start small. As a recruiter, I can tell you for free that one of the biggest hindrances I have witnessed when it comes to career transition is that many people don't want to pay the price. I've seen bankers. There was this lady I interviewed. She was working in the bank. She wanted to switch to HR. She had done a fundamental thing, which was good. She had been volunteering in a HR consulting firm. So she had a lot of valuable knowledge and like some experience she had acquired that would be good for the level that we were looking to employ her for. In the bank, she's a big person. But for this new sector, she was junior. Because you know there's what we call relevant experience. Relevant experience. So she didn't have the relevant experience. Will you believe that because of 50,000 naira, she rejected that job? She wasn't willing to take a pay cut. I think she was earning 300 or something, and this one was a 250,000 naira take home. And this was before COVID, and she rejected it. So after you have learned, there are people around you that have, let me see, we have business owners here. Meet them. What's up? I want to volunteer. I want to help you. And when you go to volunteer, don't act like this person is your church member. Leave church member in the church on Sunday. Dress well. Go there. Be serious. If the person says, oh, we don't have the budget for this, negotiate. Can I come 2 times a week? Can I do it online? Take it seriously and put it on your CV. There's somebody from TNE, a project I worked with. This lady had volunteered for 3 years. A company I was recruiting for needed somebody to do a trainee role, 70,000. She was like, she would do it. She was excited. Do you know when she went, she was too solid. They moved her to a different job of over 200,000. This Nigerian startup act that this NEET dies, that was what the job that they were giving her, to do project management on that. So you need to pay the price when you're trying to transition. Then there's a different bit to that question. Sorry. Yes. Yes, and then if you've had a break, I am not a proponent for this discrimination against people because they have gaps. I dislike it because people are going through a lot. Women are having children. However, I recommend that even when you're taking a break, I recommend that you find a way to still do something. It can even be a training. Of course, you won't do that learning every day. And then you can put it on your CV, right, that you did that thing. Another thing again is, you know, people are beginning to really accept freelancing. If there was something you were doing, you can say you did that freelancing for 5 years, provided it's not a lie. Even if you did something once a month, did you do it or you did not do it? You did it. So there are some things we take for granted. Someone reached out to me yesterday that she had not worked in 10 years. I said, in 10 years? No, that she has been looking for a job and her CV was blank. So I was like, you've not worked in 10 years? She said, well, I've been doing some research papers for Agri. I'm like, put it on your CV. So there are some things we do that we take for granted. Package it and put it on your CV.
Praise God. Thank you so much. You covered everything I had in mind. One thing I want to add is that church experience counts. So if you are in a unit in church, media is one of the easiest to transition skills. You know photography, you know how to record, you know how to edit video. No, this is not a marketing ploy to get you to church. But listen, those are things that you can put on your CV as skills you have. The second thing is, as a church, we look at a period of waiting as a period of preparation. We have taught this many times. So because you don't have what you want yet, you have to be preparing for what you want. So you need to be investing. You need to be training. And I love how Toyin Greek, right? Toyin Rike, how she put it. Please, don't waste your time. Use the time you have to get the skills that will help you. So a period of preparation, I think Pastor Dele always quotes Abraham having 300 trained men. He didn't train them the day he was looking for the war started. He had trained them beforehand. So that by the time people said they are fighting, say let's go. You must have the skills already. You must consistently build it. The second thing is, she had mentioned that some skills are rare. Some weeks ago, I went and met the chairman of the NDPC. It's a new commission. It's called the National Data Protection Commission. He was telling me that certain roles, there are less than 25 people in the world that know it. So that once they train somebody, big people come and hire them from Nigeria. So there are skills that you need to learn. Data protection, stuff like that. Nobody is doing it. And if you learn it, it's not only relevant. It's like Bro Charles' daddy said, be a spoon. Have the skills that is relevant in any part of the world. I think that's all. She covered everything else.
Okay, please a round of applause for our panelists. Yeah, a lot has been said. We've actually run out of time. Something that has stood out for me, and I think is important to emphasize, is not to underestimate or underrate any work, regardless of how small, because every experience counts. I wish we had time. I've shared some stories, but one teaching that was very important for me in church this year was the meaning of work, because we started our year with it, and I think God spoke to me through that series. And one of the things that Pastor Tokpe said was, you know, as maybe like a woman or a mother, there's a tendency for you to feel like you've missed out on life because maybe you've paused your career to take care of children. And I'm saying this because as somebody who works in international student recruitment, I see a lot of ladies who come to, you know, they want to go and study abroad. And, okay, bring out your CV, let's look at it. And there's this embarrassment around the fact that they've been raising children. I'm like, that's major project management, you know. So I feel like don't underestimate it. There's a lot of work that goes into raising children. Find a way to talk to a career specialist to know how to package your CV. And the thing about people abroad is they really value these things. For us
it's
here...
It's called early stage development management.
PG, thank you. So for us, it's easy to underestimate and say just that, but for them, it's major. You know, the fact that you've taken, you're not idle. You're not just doing nothing. You're doing something very important. So I'm not sure how we got to the point where we've belittled some jobs over others. Yeah. So on that note, it's time for questions, and I'm sure there's been a lot said, and you have questions. So question and answer. Wow. Okay, I can see like 5 hands.
Okay, I have a question, but I'll wait.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this very insightful panel. So I just asked Toyin, we've looked at this panel from the viewpoint of the employee. Somebody wants employment. Could you also talk to us who are business owners, you know, who try to raise a team? Are there things we should look out for what from your experience, are the mistakes, particularly that smaller businesses make in trying to employ and raise a team that perhaps would be of benefit to us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So one of the biggest mistakes I would say I've noticed, which is why I started Elevation Craft, is that I noticed that a lot of small business, if not just small business owners, I think this is a problem generally in Nigeria. We focus on our product, we look for money, but we take for granted the people that we are going to work with. Like, I've seen organizations that when you see their work, you're like, wow, this is awesome. And then you realize the company is like a one-man business. I'd say that, there are places that they are markets. They are a market, but they make people wear suits. Like, that one is not an office. You don't know what they are doing. And then you hear that they've existed for 30 years, and they are still where they are. You know that if they handled their people management better, everything would be better. So I think we need to prioritize that. The second thing that is really disappointing is the process of recruiting people. Some of us just bring our friends, our family, people anyhow. You don't recruit people. I trust him, let him start. Just do it anyhow. You understand? Like, we need to stop that. Thirdly, many of us focus on packaging. Like, when people go to your website, your graphics, your messaging, like, outside, people value your business, but you don't even package it to your staff. No employment letter, no employment documentation, not things to be like. And don't look at Google and say, I want it to be like Google. No, there's a reason why Google is the way it is. See, no matter what your values are as a person, there are people who will work with you. There are people, there was a company I worked at, we did voting. There were people that said they don't want remote work. They said they want to stand up and come to the office every day. Yes. If the way you want to run your business is that you want it to be 5 days a week, 8 to 5, be consistent with your processes, be consistent with your policies, with your culture, and there are people who will work with you. But let your yes be yes. Be deliberate about what you are creating, and have it at the back of your mind that you can't be everywhere every time. Those are the people who will represent you. So be deliberate about everything that concerns them. So that's my advice for an employer from a people management point.
So I have about 4, but I'm sure that we can just answer them briefly. So you mentioned about taking out your local government, your age, your gender. What if the job description mentioned those things? So if they say, I'm looking for a woman this age to this age, is that enough reason for you to put that on your CV because that speaks to the job? So that's question number 1. Then the second question, okay, the person said, in my late 20s, built a generalist career and earning close to $1 million, but I feel like I do not have career progression or have set the right foundation for my career. What can I do next? Then the third one is to Ms. Toyin Rick. You've done really well in your business. What are key things that has contributed to your growth? And then the last one is, how do you know what to transition into, especially if you've been out of work for a bit? I'm guessing there are so many options of things that...
Okay. A couple of things stand out. I'm trying to look at what I wrote. Let's start back from the point of we are Christians. And that worldview is our worldview. So even from the question of how should leaders treat their staff, those values need to show. Like you said, keep consistent messaging. It has to go into the day-to-day. So now you are changing career, or you want to change career. One of the key things that you have to do is you need to be at the top of your game where you are already. Those skills can transfer. And I'm speaking specifically to the person who said they're a generalist, because that's kind of my story. Those skills can transfer. Anywhere you go, your faith will shine through. Your consistency, your ability to listen, your empathy, your honesty. They know that when you say this thing is 1 naira, it is 1 naira. One of the biggest challenges a lot of people have when working with the NGO sector is ethics and returning change. If they tell you in the office, go and buy battery, we have priced the battery is 20,000, they give you the 20,000. You now go there, the person is from your village in, you said Kogiabi. So he's from Kaba. You now tell the person that this thing can go less. Now they sell it to you for 15. Now, if you don't take that 5,000 naira difference back to the office, 1, you are not a Christian. 2, you are not a good employee. So, and those things count, whether in small or in big. That into a generalist, right? You feel you have missed your career and all that. Don't benchmark yourself against anybody else. Something I was discussing recently, I think I said it again to someone this morning, is the devil's plan. A lot of the time we think, you have an accident. That was the devil. You had this. We think it's the big things. But the devil's plan is to separate you from God. And so, when you are beginning to try certain things, you want to jackpot, for example, right? But if you jackpot, you will become an atheist because your needs will be met, right? So you don't pray that much again. And you begin to question, does God really exist, and all those kind of things. The devil will help you to jackpot. The person that you will meet, the person that will help you, all your documents will be complete, you will go. So when it doesn't work out, be able to understand a bit that it is God at work in your life, helping to lead. It will lead you where you should go. So we are not under pressure to try and meet any other person's standards. Around work, be consistent, listen, be empathetic, have the right skills for your job. I know administrators that don't know how to use mail merge. Do you know how to, if you know how to use mail merge, raise your hand. Look around the hall. Please, just look around. Okay. So, a lot of people are wondering what is mail merge. After this meeting, go and Google mail merge. There's nobody who does any kind of administrative work that should not be using it. Do you understand what I'm saying now? And so it doesn't matter that you are at the beginning of your career or you are the top pinnacle. You should know the basic skills of making work efficiently. Praise God.
Okay, just to add to what he said. So I know somebody that was the executive assistant of a senator. That senator had a successful private business. And she was a born-again Christian. But she had times when she was earning very good, almost $1 million. This was a good boss. So there were times when this senator would get prostitutes, and she would be the one to have to settle those girls. She'd be going to pick up, she had to be exposed to a lot of things that were contradicting her faith. And after working with this man for 6 years, she got to a point where she was discouraged and she felt like, I can't continue like this. So what she started doing was, while she was working with him, she started investing in, because of course, executive assistant, for lots of people, there's no career growth, long term. So she had to start investing, and because of the industry, she wasn't doing projects or things that she could really transfer. So she started investing in a different career path. And after doing that for a while, she started looking for a junior role, and she was able to get a junior role, and she took a painful pay cut. But that was the price she had to pay to salvage her spirituality, her relationship with God, her conscience. You understand? So for somebody who you're earning almost 1 million, I don't know what your situation is and why you feel like you're not experiencing that career growth, but you might want to identify something else. You need to plan financially, invest in the alternative path, and then look for a way to switch. You can start with volunteering for a consulting firm or something. Then in regards to how I succeeded, there are people that, just as she said, aspire to perspire, misspire. I started with one feather. That was not my case. My case was I was working full-time, and as I said, I noticed there were lots of businesses, small businesses that were not managing their people well, and I started doing this as a side hustle. The first time I consulted, my money was meant to be 600K. They paid me 60K. See joy. I was so happy. For ripping me off, but I was happy. Then it got to a point where I said, let me just register a company to document the work I was doing. So I registered Elevation Craft, still full-time. Then I decided to start doing this because when the economy is bad, it's an employer's market. There are limited jobs, so everybody's doing go now, you know. So lots of work cultures became toxic. So I had to focus on just turn my side hustle to my main job. Well, 2018 was tough. 2019 picked up, things were going well. Then during COVID, Lord Jesus. So I realized that I was focusing so much on expertise and I was poor in business. I don't know why people didn't come for this program. See, when Mr. Nelson was speaking, see, sir, you are who you think you are. As in, no, because I was like, what is this man saying? So that is a mistake I picked. That I realized that I had focused so much on delivering like good HR services and all. And then another thing I realized late again, I was doing a lot of work with startups. Those guys cannot pay you. Every time they'll be telling you, you know I'm a startup. You know I'm a startup. And when they raise money, they think they are too good for you. And then they pick somebody else. So I have been making these mistakes. I've been re-strategizing. I've been going back. And right now, I'm happy to say that we are still reworking certain things. Everything was good early this year. When the new president became the president, we're like, what's going on? You understand? So if I'm being honest, it has been a journey. It has been a journey like this. You know, sometimes, when it's good, you want to put, you know this music that there's this song, I know you, they smell money, they ooze for my body. You want to rock to that song. And then there are some times where you go back and you're like, Lord Jesus, what's going on? So I think for me, the major thing is I keep learning. Yeah. So I keep learning. I try to, like, a lot of things he said, I've written them down. I try to learn from others. I learn from my experiences. And then don't just be a listener or a learner. Implement the things that you are learning. So these are the major things that God has used to really help us to do.
Let me take in what you just said to ask my question. Thank you. So my question is, now that you have the job, you've built skills, your CV is well packaged, you went for the interview, you got the job. How do you get your, because I'm into the administrative and the HR on my work. So I have like a small business that I work with as well. When I was employed, the job responsibility was for me to come because it was a startup. So I was to help them. They have staff already. They have employees already. So I was to help them document employment letter, probably get their tax, pension, and all of that. So got the job, and I got there, and I found out that the Lebanese people, they were not ready to do all what they said. What they outlined in my tax. And when I got there, I was a bit confused, like, what are we doing here? Then why was I employed? So my question is, how do you get your employer to make your job easier? Because most of the staff in the office, they don't have employment letters. They can just walk up to the CEO to ask for loans. Things like that, everything's just scattered, and I'm there. I mean, I don't know what to do, so if you can speak more on that. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a statement you made. How do you get your employer to make your work easier? Let's flip it. It is your job to make your employer's work easier. They can't make it. They employed you to bring them relief. So you need to have that mentality that this person might be chaotic, this person is imperfect. And one thing, I listened to Apostle Selman, he says that sometimes very successful people are so difficult. And let's be honest, like these people have a lot of, I'm not justifying being difficult, but people at the top have a lot of things on their plate. And then things like employment letter, if you ask me, you can prepare the confirm when did this person start, what are their policies, probation, like all those things that should be in a letter. And then when you've done it, you now, okay, sir, I've done this. In writing, kindly confirm that I can proceed to give this person, people, their employment letters. Because some employers don't want to give letter because they want to do unethical things. The person does not want, you have to leave. Now, here's why you have to leave. If you stay long there, you begin to think like them. You will pick all the bad habits that when you go for an interview, you will not even know that you've picked bad habits. You'll just be saying rubbish. Secondly, the reputation of your organization will precede you. I know somebody that worked in such a bad place. When he went for interview, the CEO looked and said, what? You are coming from this place? Is this the culture you want to bring here? My friend, stand up. And that was it. When he came back and was gisting us, I removed the place from my CV sharply. So that's my recommendation for that.
So anytime I do things at work, I normally share with men of influence. So just yesterday, I shared a book with them. It's called Extreme Ownership. It's something that was developed by people who were Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs are the top tier of the US Army. So, think Commando, think Rambo. You remember those films? Those people are Navy SEALs. So in most cases, those people are able to execute at a level higher than most people. Now, what I trained my team on yesterday morning, I have control of, the one that is under your control, you have to take extreme ownership of it. So the principles in the book, taking complete responsibility for outcomes and failures under your leadership. So who is supposed to prepare the employment letter? Is you. Prepare the letter. You must own everything in your world. Refuse to make excuses, refuse to blame others, or rationalize away failure. 2, empower your team and others by clear guidance, support, and resources. Let them do their jobs without micromanaging. Leaders must trust their team and avoid controlling them. Then you have to be strategically aggressive and proactive, making decisive calls even in uncertain conditions. Leaders need to set an intent for the team and develop strategic plans. So put those things that you know are lacking in your organization together. Do a PowerPoint. Go and meet your guy and show him. Show him, okay, I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All I need is for you to sign. Be humble and always learn. Leaders admit failures quickly. They take feedback, find lessons, and get better. No matter how much experience you have, you can always improve. Praise God.
A big thank you.
Thank you very much for the session. Just a quick one. You made mention of, researching, a certain field you want to go to. Researching a certain field you want to go to, so you don't just do something that is not marketable. So, like the data analysis you talked about, most people. Thank you.
Okay, so you can just go to maybe job boards and just type some of those roles and see how many options. Then you can see the locations where you see a lot of those jobs. Like, I know that in Nigeria, Lagos has more need for data analysts than Abuja, and I know that many people have had to move. Even product management, Lagos has more need for product management. NGOs, you hardly see NGO jobs in Lagos or in Western states. It's mostly in the north. You understand? So you look at the trends. Where are the locations? Are those cities you can go to? And then how many? You can even see the spacing. There are some roles you see that the last time that role was published was 3 months ago. And because many of these job boards don't delete the ads. So you see that maybe, so that can give you an idea of what to look out for. And then you can even Google, like, when you're checking for jobs on LinkedIn, there are no limitations to location. Like now, I noticed that a lot of the remote jobs that I can do for HR is talent acquisition, recruitment. But when it comes to full talent management, you hardly see opportunities that will hire me all the way from Nigeria. So you look at those trends, the cities, even Canada, there are some jobs that are very popular in some locations, and then in some locations in Canada, you don't see those. So take your time and check all those kind of things so that you know if you should really put your time. And even if it's scarce, as far as you're sure that God has called you to do it, others will struggle, you will get it. So make sure that you work with God, you pray about it, you continue to invest spiritually for Him to give you that direction. Yeah.
Here there's one last question.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to add a little to what Pastor Barrow said to the lady that talked about, okay, no, it's what you said. Okay, you started and then he finished about the lady in the toxic environment. So I'm in a similar situation, but I'm in a similar situation in terms of, in the fact that I want to leave my organization to another one, but not because it's toxic, but because it's not filling me in certain areas. And I had a discussion this morning with Minister Nelson. So to add to what he talked about, preparing a PowerPoint presentation, you should also take stock in terms of numbers as to, okay, how many people are leaving the organization, how many, just the areas that there are concerns, take a stock in terms of numbers, so that when you now finally solve the problem, you now have a rating, a matrix. I move from 20% of this to 30% of that, and you're doing it for the next place you're going to. So you may not get results because the place is toxic and because they're trying to do unethical things, but in your solving that problem, you're preparing yourself for the next place. Numbers.
Thank you very much for that very valid contribution. And thank you to our panelists for their time and just their brain in this session. There's so much to take in. Thank you so much. You can. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I feel like that applause was not coordinated. Can we please put our hands together properly? Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going very quickly into another panel. The panel session is a business conversation where we're talking about how to move from ideation stage to raising funds. Okay. So I'm just going to introduce the panelist or the panel moderator, and then she would come up and introduce the panelists. The moderator of the panel is Yemisi Isidi. Yemisi, I have to read your profile. Yemisi is a business strategist. Oh, I did get it. And social entrepreneur with a background in management and finance and a proven track record spanning over 8 years, dedicated to propelling businesses towards profitability and positive societal impact through impact investment and strategic advisory. Please help me welcome Yemisi Isidi.
Thank you so much. Please, I want all of us to stand up for a bit. We've been sitting since morning. We have tried. Let us stand up. Some of us, we don't know each other. Even those that come to this church, you don't know what your neighbor does for a living or what they're interested in. So please go and speak to someone, if possible, someone that you do not know. Introduce yourself. It was in an event like this that I got my first job. So please, introduce yourself. What do you do for a living? What are you interested in? Thank you. What have you learned today? Okay. Which church do you attend? Are you going to church? Do you believe in Jesus? All right, thank you, thank you. So now we can sit down, we can go back into our sessions. Please, if you're sitting behind, kindly move forward so we can fill the first 3 rows, okay? All right, thank you so much, everyone. So there was something that I can't remember who said it on this panel. I think it's Mrs. Stoin. So first of all, let me even tell people how I met Mrs. Stoin. So early this year, somebody that used to do a training for her, Japad, so he was looking for a replacement, and they reached out to my husband, who kindly recommended that, oh, I can do the training instead of the person. And something that I like to do when I'm working with someone, I try to talk to the people that they work with, right? Just to have a sense of who they are, because your employees may not tell you to your face that they are wicked, but there's a way that somebody will ask them about you, that the person will know that you are a very wicked person. So I spoke to her team, I think her EA, and they said really nice things. But what really stood out was, at the time when I was training with her, there was an NGO that I was doing that I had done some work for, and they were really stressing me about a particular task. It was, and I'm not very familiar, you NGO, Abuja NGO people, your own vibe is very different. And I was like, it was really frustrating me. And I remember speaking about it on the phone, and somebody who was at that event overheard me. And he said, oh, go and speak to Toyin. She did this and this for our organization, and she did it excellently. Like, our superiors were speaking highly of what she had done. So I think that evening I reached out to her. She's very busy, so even the fact that she's here, I do not take it for granted at all. Please put your hands together. Honestly, I'm so grateful that she made it here. So they said, so I reached out to her. She said, okay, call me later in the evening. So I called her around 8 p.m. We had an extensive discussion. Like, she walked me through everything, like screwed my head on tight, sent me all the resources that I needed to, and because she was able to walk me through that situation, and because I was able to sort it out with the organization, is now something that anybody, as long as is it this thing that you want, I can do it. So I'm so grateful for her support and the fact that she's here today. Yeah. So just a few announcements before I call on my panelists. So we have, after this panel, we have a lunch break, very quick lunch break, and then the final panel, and then we can go. We're so thankful that you're here, and we hope that you stay with us to the end. Right? There's a panelist who was unable to make it, but he's a UN consultant. He was in church on Sunday, and he kindly offered to speak at this event. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but he sent us two very, I don't know the right word to use, but it's such a valuable resource. We would only be able to send it to you if we have your details. So please, during the break, if you did not sign up online and you would want to get that resource, please make sure that you meet me and you give us your details. Very, very important. Right? And I also want to encourage you to please take advantage of the support that Carespring provides. Like, this is just a really small segment of the kind of support that we can provide both for your career and for your business. If you have questions, please write them down. If you're joining us online, please find a way to get it across to us, because at the end of the day, we've done this for you. So we want to make sure that every support, every question that you have, we are able to answer. And if you'd like to pitch your business and you haven't spoken to myself or Bukola, please do that as well. So now we're going to go into the session, and we've covered career, so now we're talking on business. We realized a lot of people sent us loads of questions about business, and we really hope that people who will be bringing up on this panel would address every concern, every question you have about setting up a business. So I'm not going to do a long introduction. I'm sure that they will do a better job at introducing themselves than I can. So please, you will join me to welcome Minister Ife Kehinde. Pastor Ife Kehinde, so sorry, God. And then if you can help me welcome Mr. Shola Oworu as well. And our favorite minister, who is who he is, Minister Nelson. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so very quickly, we'll start from Mr. Nelson, Mr. Pastor Ife. If you could please just introduce yourself to us, especially talking about your business journey, starting a business. So before Pastor Ife even speaks, I recommended someone for a job with Pastor Ife, and he's had very kind things to say. In fact, one of my closest friends used to work for Pastor Ife when she was in her NYC. Now she has a baby, she's married, and every time we meet, she would ask me about Pastor Ife, and she would always talk about him as a businessman and what has led you to the journey, your entrepreneurship journey.
Thank you very much. Let me see. I would like to know who that person is.
Lydia.
Oh,
Lydia.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ife. I didn't think that I was naturally set out for business. I am not so much of an outspoken person. I am very reserved. In as much as I like solving problems and attending to people's problems, I really do not like so much engagement. I like it to be very brief. Describe what you want. We can find a solution to it. But a lot of people like to talk. But you know, I'm growing in that light. I started out as I started work with a stockbroking firm, then the bank. But I knew that I was, do the little I could do here and there. Around that time, I got married. It was it was really tough. But thankfully, my wife is a very correct person. So, yes, you can clap. How did we start? So, PG is a partner at CrossArch. There's another person called Toyin Fashino. He's currently in Canada. And I like saying this because so that people can know how I started. I needed money. I had executed some job for NYSC. Then my mother-in-law was with NYSC, so at least it was that plug in there. And it wasn't just a plug, it was based on delivery. Because she's a very strict person. She didn't want her image to be tarnished. So we drew 20K, gave me 15, and he kept 5. So I was like, really? So a few weeks later, he called me that passion, that's what he wanted to do. I'm like, are you serious? He said, well, I don't have that much money. Go and look for somebody else that can. And obviously, I didn't have any shishi. But at least I had the idea. So I was... because a lot of people look for money, and I realized that money has this fake or false impression of capacity. Whether you have it or you don't have it. So if you don't have money, you can feel that you are incapacitated. When you have money, you can feel that, oh boy, you are... But the truth is, a lot of people have money. A lot of people started the same business with us, and they are nowhere today. Not because they didn't have the right equipment, but rather they didn't have the right mental structure, both mental and physical structure, and create processes that can sustain, that level of business for a long period. So we started, PG joined, so the three of us started the business. I wasn't new in the business, but I had a lot to learn. But it's going to be 10 years next year. We have grown. I have a good work culture. I had some bosses that were both very nice, some were very difficult. So I had a mix of them. So I had basic expectations. At the same time, we have had a lot of progress. I was telling Pastor today that I really did not do much of advertisement or marketing. People speak for us. And that's the advantage I have right now, that a lot of people are speaking out there, just speaking for me without me knowing. People just came in from Lagos, with the Tinubu government, and they are calling that someone recommended you. I'm like, really? One last thing I'd like to say, that it's important that we recognize our capacity. When we started, about that year or 2 years after, someone said they could inject 100 million into the business. I'm like, I cannot manage 100 million. Wow. So I turned down the money. 5 years ago, another guy came that he wanted to do something, or rather he would invest into our company about 40 million. I looked at it. I'm like, see, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. But last year, or this year, No, before that, I wanted to go into the online marketing space, and we experimented once. You know, a lot of people are out there, they don't really know what they want. A lot of people will say that you can make a lot more money, you know, if you go online. I agree with you, but there's a lot of structure and processes that go with that. If you not build that, don't venture into it. And that's the mistake a lot of people do. They want to be visible, and they've not built the capacity to handle the kind of things they're attracting to themselves. My model might not be the best for everybody, but it at least works for me. And I would like to say that to everyone who is looking out for something, you mentioned something earlier about being trustworthy. I think that's the most important thing. I have needed money in this place, and people have given me plenty in this church. A lot of people. I meet Pastor Femi, meet a lot of people. I need so amount of money. And people are willing to give, not because they know. I don't even present the contract to a lot of people, but they still, Mr. Shola is here, in fact. A lot of people are really supported. So for you to stand as a business person, cheap way to grow. Very easy and cheap.
Thank you so much. Just to put it out there, because I want to be rich like PG, please, if you have a small business and you're trustworthy and you want investments, I may not have the money, but I can connect you with people who have the money, then we can share the returns. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Shola, can you please tell us more about Afritech's initiative and some of the challenges you've had doing that or any other business and how you've overcome them?
Okay, good evening, everybody, or good afternoon. Okay, well, before coming to Afritech, well, I never planned doing business. You know, I stumbled into doing business by, well, design. That God actually wanted me to do business. Because like I tell people, and as an undergraduate, my nickname was Baba Tutorial. You know, so my dream was to be a lecturer in University of Ibadan where I schooled. You know, that was the only thing that was in my head growing up, because my parents were business people. My mom was a lecturer in the same university, so I never was planning into business, you know. But but when I came here, you know, I was, of course, I served in government. I was retained. We were just two people that were retained where I served, and that was still. But I left at some point because I needed to leave to go and do my master's in Mina. And while I was doing the master's, we were 14 in the class. I was quite young. I was the youngest in the class. We were 14. And I have to introduce myself to people that was a master's student. People would always think I was a 300 level engineering student because most of my peers were, you know. But I was practically doing assignments for all of us in the class, you know. I have directors. I have 2 army generals in my class. I had a major. I have the airport manager for Abuja Airport here was my class. So I was a junior guy in the class, but I do assignments for everybody, you know. Yeah, but before then, because I'd learned, when I was going to NIT, I was going to NIT and Aptech at the same time. So I've learned some of the soft skills that could allow me to use the computer that they had, I didn't have. As a matter of fact, they called me computer man because I had a computer bag, you know, like all this Jehovah's Witness bag that I used to carry my book, but I don't have a laptop. It was a laptop bag, but without a laptop. You know, but they had a cathode-ray computer in the cantonment, if you've been to Mina, you know, so I used the computer in doing all our assignments and all of that. So I had an accommodation, but they practically lured me to start staying with them. Because I would do the assignment for everybody without asking, okay, what are you going to give me for the assignment? So one of the things is, I will tell people that the angel of goodness is in the lane of extra mile, when you can go extra mile for people. Because a lot of people a lot of things, you know, after Minister Samuel Nelson's lane of entrepreneurship, but what's at work for me, before we get to architects, is the fact that, okay, so I was doing assignment for everybody in the class, and, you know, they started paying my bills. So, of course, I'd prepared before going for the class. You know, I paid my accommodation, I paid my tuition, so it was not like I was going to pay on anybody, but I was doing that for everybody. So one evening I was in Abuja, you know, one of the generals called me, computer man, where are you? I said, I'm in Abuja. So I said, can you do electricals? Come to me 30, go to me around 8:30, so in the morning. he asked the orderly to take me to the center. If you've been to Mina, there's a place that's called IBB Center. It's just like the Yadua Center here. So they were building that structure, you know, for their principal, their former principal. So they wanted to do the electricals of that building, you know, and they said, can I do electrical? I said, yes, you know, so they gave me the job. It was quite some sum, you know, I mean, so I have a friend who has been the head of power in Zenith Bank then, so we went to Lagos, bought all the materials in Alaba, and came to do the job, you know. So that actually inspired that it's not too difficult to make money. Oh. You understand? I mean, it was not like you have to do so many, it was just one phone call. I went, and that was a job in millions at that time. So I made enough money that, well, of course, I could study, you know. I mean, I sold my first land when I was 7. I got to when I was 7 to pay my tuition in Mina to do NIT and Alaptech. So I did remote sensing in Mina, and I'd wanted to go to UI to do GIS, but because of distance and all of that, so I saw the option of doing GIS in India and advanced diploma in GIS, which was a 9-month program. So I paid. I tell people the first time I entered plane in my life, I paid, and I was going abroad. You understand? From that job, I was able to buy the franchise of the second largest software company in India. I just rang and said they have some business people who want to talk to a Nigerian who can work for them. So I went for the meeting. To cut long story short, I was employed to work for that company. But they were not ready because they need to bring expatriate. Because I came back to work here as an expatriate. You know, you need to have a structure, your accommodation, the offices. But they just pay the franchise fee without a structure. So I was absorbed in the international pool, you know, so I stayed back for another 13 months before eventually coming. So, like I said, still I was not a businessman. There was no design to do business. So I joined the company. I was working, earning good. You know, I had a brand new car as my official car, living in an old duplex in Baima Abacha Estate. So it was good. But we weren't doing things the right way. You know, I mean, it was not, you know, the owners of the company had an agenda. They had a very good team that could actually revolutionize the sector in terms of the kind of people they were able to attract. But our problem then was not getting project, but finishing projects. You know, so, I mean, it became a nightmare for me because, I mean, some things you can't see in the camera, but it was a big nightmare because we get projects, we don't finish it, so many litigation in court. You know, like doing a project that, you know, you can't say some things in the air, but empty carton of paper to deliver a project, that was so messy. So, at some point, you know, my local running then, as an expatriate, is 100,000. You know, because as an expatriate, you earn in dollars, you have what's called local running for you to. So there was money, but at some point, I felt I needed to leave, and when I left, everybody thought I was mad. Because it was a kind of job that any young man would want to do. So I ventured into doing business. Of course, not learning, not actually knowing how to do business. The first office I took was a whole floor where my office is. I had 14 people, you know, start spending money. And in 6 months, we did a job, you know. So I had saved up money, I've worked, I'd made money, but within 6 months, okay, you know, I mean, our furniture for the office, we traveled to Dubai to buy the furniture because the people we are working with, these are people that have had like 30 years of experience. Our bosses started not knowing the dynamics that is involved, and it was a total chaos because we became broke. My partner left, you know, I mean, that day I didn't know whether to know him, whether to, you know, but when we had to come back, recalibrate, and start focusing on providing real collaborative solution to the real estate business. We started getting small jobs, you know, and you know, so in the wake of that, you started looking for partners. So it was one of the occasions I had to go back to India to look for, I have a meeting with a company called Aegis Technologies. This my partner is actually very good. I think Pastor Mburu will know him. He's close to Dami Williams and Demola. Okay, they are all classmates in Ife. So and even Pastor Dejoel, they were all my junior in Pentasoft, the company I work with. So I went for a meeting. I call it partnership on that time in India. And the solution that was created by this my friend, who is a software genius, that works on relational database engine that can process information for millions of concurrent users, was argued that was not done in Nigeria. So I had to call him that. They said, we know if we do this for Nigeria. So when he spoke to them technically on how he was able to create that engine, they still didn't believe. They said he must have gone for maybe technical support training in India, in the UK. That's what he's talking about. So that was what actually brought the idea of Architects. Because when I came back, I met the people in NIDA. Professor Ngai was the DJ at that time, and discussion was around we need to create a platform to showcase the level of IT development in Nigeria at par with other parts of the world. So to put it in context, Architects is not a business for me. It's an idea that came as a result of seeing a need.